So thank you very much to come to my session. It's called Workspace Management as a Service, Managing the Personal Cloud from the Cloud. Apologies that I can't do this in Dutch. As you might hear from my little accent, I'm out of Germany. So I have to do this in English, but I know for the Dutch people that is not a challenge. So what is this all about today? First of all, it's about managing the end user's workspace in a very efficient way. And I want to drive you a little bit through some of the thoughts that Matrix 42 has when it comes to workspace management. One thing as a heads up, what I typically do in those kind of presentations is to explain the why. I mean, what are we doing as Matrix 42? What drives us and our solutions, and why do we build these solutions? Because there's a gentleman called Simon Sinek. He's actually a guy, a book author, etc. He said something very, from my point of view, spot on. People buy not what you do, they buy why you do it. And the answer to this why we build software, what kind of software we build, I want to touch on this presentation. But before we get started, a little commercial break. And you have to help me here how long we need to have this. Who knows Matrix 42 by the show of hands? Oh, 2, 3. Yeah, we have to do a little bit better in marketing than in Holland. But a little bit about myself and about Matrix 42. About myself, that's pretty straightforward. My name is Bendig. I'm the CTO at Matrix 42. So I'm responsible for everything that is related to products at Matrix 42, product management, product development. I'm responsible for strategy, vision, etc. So I personally have spent the last almost 15 years in trying to solve one very big problem from my point of view, is how we can simplify management and provisioning from end user computing workspaces to the end user, and at the same time make it available and controllable for IT. So Matrix 42, who are we? We are a software vendor. We provide software that simplifies IT management in general. But we are focused on a topic that we call workspace management, as I mentioned, and this basically means for us 3 things. It means technical management of the workspace, so things that you know as software deployment, operating system deployment, inventory, remote control. We do this for more than 20 years. Let's say the classical PC, desktop management, client lifecycle management. The thing that became much more important the last 5 to 6 years is the business side of the workspace. So if your users consume their workspace, they consume apps, it creates costs, it consumes licenses. Probably the asset needs to be cross-charged, whether it's a virtual desktop, a physical desktop, or a mobile device. So we have a solution or a component in our portfolio that takes care of this as well. Make sure that your license balance sheet is in check, and also your assets are cross-charged properly. IT service management and compliance offering. And the third piece of workspace management is what I call the delivery method. So yes, the press sometimes tries to tell us that it's not there anymore, but the physical PC, laptop is still there. We still take care of this. We have heavily invested the last 5 years together with our friends from Citrix to work on simplifying virtual desktop management. When it comes to provisioning of full desktops, as well as XANAPP management and provisioning of XANAPP-based applications. But the other delivery component is the mobile device. More and more users are using their tablets, their smartphones. You want to have access to different applications and services from those devices, so we take care of that as well. We're roughly now 270, 280 people in size, depends on how many people you count that are external. And we are based in Germany, but we do international business. So especially Benelux is quite important for us. That's the reason why I'm here and why we are here today. But that's enough about the commercial break. Let's talk about the topic. And before we get started to drill down into workspace management as a service, I want to start with the definition, because every time when I talk about this topic, a lot of people are getting confused by the term workspace management as a service versus desktop as a service versus workspace as a service versus Windows as a service. Let's talk about our definition. Where we provide value is in managing the complete workspace. So if you are searching for a solution that provides desktop as a service, it's probably Citrix, VMware, there are other smaller vendors like a Tokario, even an Amazon workspace that provide the full Windows experience out of the cloud and from a workspace perspective. But what they are lacking a little bit, and some of them more, some of them less, is the complete management of that desktop experience. And that's what we call workspace management as a service, so the management tool out of the cloud. So this is not about desktop as a service. I think there's a session later on that touches this from VMware. This is about managing and a management tool out of the cloud. So, as I mentioned to you, I want to talk a little bit about the why, that you understand why is Matrix 42 so passionate about the workspace business problem. And the answer to the why is actually where I want to start with a little poll, and I like the concept for this about this session and this event. This is quite interactive, because the why is pretty much focused around how does end-user computing and end-user workspaces, how do they evolve in the next few years? And I have one slide that shows our view on the workspace in 2020. But before we do that, I would like to actually ask you, and for those of you who have access to this link, there is this question in my session. It's actually the second question, frankly, that says, which operating systems will be mostly important in 2020? Will it still be Windows? You can't read it properly, I guess. Mac OS 10, iOS, Android, Chrome, or even other things? What's your opinion? So I see some check-in. So let's give it 1 minute. And if we don't have... Yeah, thanks for... I guess you explained it now. Yeah, that's very good. So let's see, because I have one slide that gives my view on this, but I would like to get your view first. So, okay, let's check the results. We can check it later on again. 3 respondents, that's not that much, but Chrome and still Windows in 2020. Okay, we will come back to that later on again. I want to give you my view on this. Let's say the CTO perspective on workspace management, how it was today and in the past and in the future. So first of all, there are different dimensions. Operating system is just one dimension. It's about devices. And yes, we talked today, and in the past we talked about desktop, laptops, and thin clients. In the future, guess what? We still talk about the same level of devices and the same amount of devices plus different things. Wearables, Internet of Things, mobile devices, obviously. The input method changes from probably mouse and keyboard. If I look at my own work style, much more to voice. Touch is pretty simple for everybody, but even voice. I mean, SMS is a good example, or iMessage. When I'm in the car, that's a pretty simple use case for me, that I talk to my workspace, to my mobile phone in that case, through voice. It gets better and better. So we believe we will see this more in 2020. So the OS topic, my personal view on this is Windows won't disappear, but it will become less important. So we all understand that mobile devices and mobile operating system become more relevant and more important, so the mobile operating system is more important. But even things like Chrome are very interesting, provide very interesting technology and scenarios. So it will be a mix from my point of view. So Windows will be still a very dominant player there, but how to put this into context, I think the operating system, I personally think the operating system becomes less relevant, because it's the application that sits on the operating system. And this is much more device and operating system independent in the future. So we talk still about Windows apps, but we will see an increase in web apps and software as a service applications. iOS and Android is already a reality. And Chrome apps as well as Mac OS 10. Mac OS 10 is there, and Chrome we will see more and more. So let's, from a percentage perspective. SaaS apps, and that's my favorite example, at the moment, or still in the past, less than 5% usage. In the future, the browser-neutral, browser-agnostic apps are available on all devices, so we will see a big push here. Mobile apps, obviously also a big increase in the organization. But Windows apps, and that's, I think, the most important part, they won't disappear, but they get less relevant. But to finalize this picture, there's a few more dimensions that are important from our point of view. One thing is ownership. Right? I don't want to talk here about bring your own and rephrase what all the other vendors and press is saying. Bring your own works for somebody, and for other organizations it does not. But there's one thing that is reality out there. Personal stuff on devices is happening out there, regardless if it is a corporate device or a personal owned device. Personal stuff is happening out there, so we can't prohibit this. So this means from a management perspective, we need to support this. The other things that are quite important is workspace delivery. That's the main reason for this presentation today. I don't see an either-or kind of solution. What we will and what I personally believe is going to happen in the next few years is pretty much a hybrid approach. You have workspaces that sit on-premise and sit actually on the device, but you have also workspaces that come out of the cloud. So a hybrid model is quite important here. And the things where most customers that I talk to forget about the workspace business problem, the area where they forget about, is process management paradigms and goals. Process means, in the past, it was pretty much about IT service management, service desk, incident problem, change, etc. But in the future, we will see much more that the IT disappears from service management. The solution that actually provides users access to apps, to services in general, is probably a solution that other departments want to use as well. Think about an HR department that has a service that is called vacation request. Think about a fleet management that has a service that is called my car needs to have maintenance, etc. So we see processes like service management, compliance, business process management, and DevOps, that the people that actually build the service, the app sits on a device, has costs and a process around it, that the guys who actually build it are also operating it and managing it. So DevOps is quite important. So it's a lot about self-service and social, and I want to talk about this a little bit, what we do here as Matrix 42. But the interesting piece in the discussions that I have with customers is, when it comes to workspace management as of today, it's all about cost and efficiency, right? We want to do more with less, and we don't have a lot of budget, etc. In the future, we will, and especially for the organizations that are very innovative, it's still about cost and efficiency. But what they see as well is, if I provide users a more simple and easier way to access their workspace, it's much more an innovative approach that helps me to differentiate against my competition. So let's talk about the why for one more slide, because a concept that I've created is something that I call the Workspace 4.0 revolution. And where we are heading to is obviously from a Workspace 1.0 revolution, where it was data center-based, mainframe days, to second revolution, PC-based, where management was device-centric, to an area where we're at the moment in, mobility. That's for sure. But what's not going to happen is something that a lot of vendors out there try to tell me, that it's all will be consolidated to one device. We see something, I personally, in the discussions with customers, see something completely different. It's a multi-device workspace out there. So it's a laptop and a tablet and a smartphone. And guess what? In the future, even more devices. Yeah? Machines that are maybe, that help me to read my emails, let's say the car, for instance. But where we are heading, and where does Matrix 42 see value that we can provide to our customers? It's something that I call the Workspace 4.0 revolution, this notion of a personal cloud. So how does an end-user workspace look like in the future? It's probably this personal cloud that consists of many devices, many different application types. Yes, we talk about virtual apps, we talk about mobile apps, we talk about SaaS apps. Yeah? We talk about all these different application types. We talk about different data containers. I still have my home drive, but I might have access to a SharePoint site. And guess what? There's Google Drive, or there's also Microsoft OneNote, etc., that a desktop storage as a service solution that is part of that personal cloud as well. But it does not end there. It's about identities and services as well. What I mean with identities is that in the past, it was pretty much a one-to-one relationship between user, my identity, to access corporate services. It was Active Directory. But fast forward to today and in the future, with this notion of SaaS and different mobile apps, all of a sudden you have form-based authentication. You need to remember all these usernames and passwords. You have applications that have OAuth authentication, SAML2, etc. There's a whole different bunch of technology out there, and identities, your Google ID, your Live ID, even your Facebook, your Twitter account that you can nowadays use to authenticate against software as a service applications. My point is, there's a big business problem that we get from you, from our customers, is said this needs to be consolidated again to one thing, one single pane of glass where the end user can access the workspace that is controllable again for the IT. And this is the why. This is where we are moving to manage to simplify management of the provisioning and management of the personal cloud. So let's talk about this in terms of, in general, where IT is heading to. I'm sure you have seen comparable slides before, but this is very important to explain our why. We see workspace management, especially out of the cloud, not just as a technology problem. It's the bigger side of things is actually the business side of things. the licenses, the asset that I need to cross-charge. Just to give you a simple example in terms of license management. If you introduce mobile in your mobile as an access point to your workspace, to your users, and this mobile device you allow, for instance, bring your own, or let's say buy your own, and somebody goes into like a store and purchases a Microsoft Surface, and goes into the organization and uses remote app on this Microsoft Surface device that is a personal device. Microsoft is pretty much fine of it if you have a software assurance program, right? If the same guy goes into an Apple store and buys an iPad, a personal iPad, goes into the organization and consumes the same app on that device, there's a different license type that Microsoft wants. It's a license called CDL. So what this basically means is there's a lot of complexity out there in terms of the cost element and the business side of the workspace. So customers are searching for an easy button, and that's something that we provide, right? By a click of a button, we consider, is it a personal device, is it a corporate device, how does the license balance sheet look like? So in terms of some data that I brought into you, because I think it's one thing to talk about features, I will touch on that briefly too, but to talk a little bit about data, what our customers are saying to us when it comes to cloud-based delivery and cloud-based workspace management. And what we did actually, there's a little trade fair in Hanover called CeBIT. And we've asked a lot of our customers and also prospects, I mean, what kind of services are you actually using and consume as a cloud service already? And also, there was this answer that you could check, desktop as a service. So before I open up what the answer was from more than 1,000 customers, I would like to ask you, who's already using desktop as a service? Like you get your Windows experience out of the cloud. Who's doing this? So if you don't mind, open up your phone or your tablet and do that real quick. And I will probably open up then later on the result too. But when it comes to what we have asked our customers to do, or asked our customers what kind of services are you using, it's very obvious. Email is a cloud service that is consumed, even storage as a service, Dropbox, etc., or Box. Interestingly, IT service management is also on the top level. Mobile device management a little bit. But if you go to like desktop as a service, it's only a few folks that are doing this as of today, 3% actually. So it's email, IT service management, so part of workspace management is already delivered through the cloud. The second question that we have asked is, what's the biggest benefit? And that's an interesting one. Why do you want to have your management tool out of the cloud? What do you think? What kind of benefit do you get from that? And again, from a logical perspective, it makes sense. Yeah? The first answer was, highest ranking, flexibility, fast support of new technologies, like Microsoft brings out a new operating system. I don't have to install anything. The management tool can deploy Windows 10 or can deploy iOS 9 or 10 or whatever comes out next. Pretty simple. But the interesting piece is, and I have this discussion quite often, I expect lower total cost of ownership. So it's a cost thing. So I move my management tool into the cloud, and I believe I have less costs. And I'm giving you my opinion about this and an experience of a lot of projects that where I was personally engaged. A lot of times, this is just wrong. Flexibility and agility is not for free. And I explain this to customers always with a picture about a service that we all know. And that service is called a transportation service. And as you see here is a very well-known transportation service. I think there was somewhere in Afghanistan. Is actually cheap to run, robust, and universal deployed. Some might call it a legacy service or an on-premise service. Yeah? So it's probably not that flexible, but it's very robust. So if I compare this to this one here, this service here, for those of you who sat in that car before, it's a very agile, a very, very flexible service. I mean, it's impressive how that car can turn around 360 degrees on the street. So flexibility and agility, that's the key element of this service. But guess what? If I compare the costs of both services, this service is purpose-built. It's specifically built for transportation, but it's expensive. But it's uniquely agile. And that's a little bit how I see workspace management out of the cloud. Please don't make that mistake that you just put in some coins, you consume the service out of the cloud, and everything is cheap. Most of the time, it's not. Agility costs money. Okay? So to finalize the review, so we've asked customers, what do you expect from a workspace management solution out of the cloud? And I see it's a kind of eye chart from back there, but the top element was, I want to deploy apps, right? Second thing was, I want to make sure that we have a backup and recovery option that if something goes wrong, that we can immediately redeploy the machine. Mobile device management, deploying devices, profiles on mobile devices and apps. IT service management, patch management, OS management. So classical technical management disciplines. And we also asked the customers, how important do you see workspace management out of the cloud in the next 24 months? And it was a very interesting picture because a lot of customers said it's interesting, but it's not an either-or discussion. But let's say 1/3 said it's important, and I'd rather extend my workspace management solution if I want to implement more a self-service approach or license management or service management component. I'd rather consume this out of the cloud than installing it on-premise. And one thing a chart that I like very much is the geographical closeness. Is this important for you? And this is pretty much Central European customers, and 1/2 said it's important, it's actually very important. Interestingly, in my discussions with customers in the Netherlands, I have the perception for you guys it's not that important. If I talk to our customers in Germany, it's very important. One of the first questions is, if I get that service from you, Matrix, where is it located? Yes, it's in Frankfurt. Yes, it's in Ireland if you want to. Yes, it's in the US. We don't care. We have infrastructure all over the world. So to finalize this, what's the biggest challenge? Data security and compliance issues. And I also try to talk in pictures. It's always the two things when customers sit in an audience and listen to me and say, do I really want to deploy the whole management suite out of the cloud? I actually want to have this all on-premise. I ask the question, why? And I always get two reasons. Number one is security. Is it really secure what you provide there in terms of data, in terms of operations, in terms of compliance? And the second answer that I get is a lack of control. Am I really in control of what's happening with this infrastructure if I need to deploy apps, services to different workspaces? And again, I would like to answer my view or give you my view on these two topics through actually a picture, an analogy. Because if I compare cloud to the service driving a car versus taking a plane, I sit in my Audi and in German Autobahn, drive 250 kilometers an hour, and I feel controlled and secure because I have the steer wheel in my hands. But frankly, if I compare this to other services, it's not a very secure service. The only reason why I think it's secure is because I'm under control. But from a statistics perspective, flying is a much better service. So, but somehow we jump into a plane and we have a little bit of an uncomfortable feeling because we don't see exactly what's happening in front. But if I compare this to a cloud service, planes are on maintenance, there's dedicated people that take care of it, and that's how we see the cloud as well. So it might feel a little bit uncomfortable, but if you have have troops of people that do nothing else that ensure that the infrastructure is up and running and that your users are served, I think that's not a bad thing. So let's talk a little bit about features in the last remaining 6 minutes. So what does Matrix 42 provide here in real features? So this is just a screenshot how the solution looks like in terms of you open your browser, your end users can consume services, they can request for apps, you get apps delivered, you can request for generic IT services, etc. So, but to describe what we do here is actually a combination of that product which is pretty modular in 5 areas. Number one is we take care of all your different devices that you have out there. If you have chosen Macs and Windows PCs, we can help you to manage those out of the cloud. If you have your VDI infrastructure based on Citrix, we tie deeply into Citrix Xen Desktop to help you in installing and managing the infrastructure, whether it's on-premise or in the cloud. And we help you to provision Xen-based applications, for instance, out of the same console as you would do with physical apps. On the other side, tablets and smartphones, things that you expect from an enterprise mobility management vendor. So we take care of mobile device management, mobile application management, mobile content management. But the beauty of the system comes actually in with this top layer here. So think about this use case that an end user goes into a portal, a Matrix 42 portal, and requests a mobile workspace. And that service consists of the iPad, my data plan, my SIM card, my corporate apps that needs to be deployed, and actually access to a virtual desktop that is provided through Citrix. By a click of a button, I get actually this whole service available as an end user. So the magic happens in the background. Matrix 42 takes care of it, that everything is installed on your iPad, that the virtual desktop gets delivered and is up and running. But the interesting piece is then what's happening with the business side, because we take also care about then the licenses. So if you consume apps and consume licenses, we cross-charge it to the department where the guy is located in, and we make sure that the cost element is covered as well. And if something goes wrong and somebody has problem using that iPad and that virtual desktop, we have an integrated incident problem and change management solution that by a click of a button, you can say, my virtual desktop runs slow on an iPad or on my MacBook. Can you help me? And a service desk technician can do so by a push of a button. That's pretty powerful, we believe. So this is how it looks like. I would like to encourage you. We have this available as browser versions and also as an app. So the app is available as an iOS app, an Android app. It's for free. So if you have a chance and a phone or a tablet, go to the App Store, download it. It comes with a demo mode. You can click through it and experience some of the use cases. For instance, the service catalog and the service desk component that you can play around with the product. I think then you get a pretty good feeling about this. So how does this look like in terms of implementation? As I mentioned, we believe it's not an either-or decision. This is a very typical architecture view, how customer environments look like. You have your mobile devices that sit in the cloud somehow all the time. You have your existing infrastructure behind your firewall, physical and virtual workplaces. And you have on-premise infrastructure that is there, and that will probably not be replaced near time soon. So one example could be Active Directory for authentication. But also, if you have a Xen desktop implementation on site, that's also fine for us. Or you might even have some Matrix 42 components on site because you want to have them on-premise. Think about a license management solution that can be available through the cloud, but also on-premise. A lot of customers that I talk to say to me, licensing and contracts is very sensitive data. I'm a little bit cautious what happens to it if that is in the cloud. So I want to have that service on-premise. But all the other stuff, Oliver, I'm happy to consume it out of the cloud. Very simple example is self-service. That portal, why should I install infrastructure on site? Very simple example is mobile management. Why should I deploy a mobile management solution on site if the devices are all the time in the cloud? So the management solution can come out of the cloud too, right? So how does the experience look like? Again, if you log into our website, matrix42.com, it's actually a pretty simple step. You register, you provision, you get a tenant provisioned as part of our solution, of our platform. You get a so-called provisioning dashboard, which gives you some information, little movies, explanation, documents, etc., what you can do next. You can download a management agent if you want to for physical devices, for instance, that gets automatically installed and talks via HTTPS then to our Cloud Now infrastructure. So you're up and running. And then you can decide what kind of services you want to use. It's pretty straightforward, pretty simple. The location questions I want to answer as well. We are based on Microsoft Azure. So we use the platform as a service approach. Microsoft Azure is available on all big continents. But we also have the ability to do a dedicated hosting, for instance, for customers out of Frankfurt, for instance, or also out of Switzerland. For those customers, it's quite important that the infrastructure is local. And that's also something that we provide. So key takeaways and recommendations. Again, what I would like you to take with you after this session, first of all, is obviously join us at our booth and find out more about us, but about the why. So we believe that there is this notion of a personal cloud that is inevitable. So this evolution, we cannot stop. So IT management needs to change and needs to support that notion of a personal cloud. Second thing is, please don't make that mistake to just think mobile. Everybody talks about mobile, and mobility is important, and it's the future workspace. But if you think just mobile, as everything will be consolidated to one device, I'm sure we will talk in a few weeks, months, or years, where you say it's probably did not happen. It's more like a multi-device experience. So think workspace, not just mobile. Third thing is, we believe in this notion of a workspace aggregation story. If you have existing infrastructure like Citrix, VMware, Active Directory, even on on the service management side, components like ServiceNow, etc., we believe we need to integrate in those because we want to provide this complete experience, this single pane of glass for IT, but also for the end user. So integration is key. The heart of our product is a workflow engine that provides that pretty simple. And fourth, please don't make the mistake. If you think about getting that solution out of the cloud, as I mentioned, we provide both on-premise and cloud. But if you want to get this out of the cloud, please don't make that mistake that if you move everything to the cloud now, that it is cheaper. In most projects where I was involved, it's not cheaper. Agility costs money, and that's okay because it kind of gives you flexibility for the future. And the last but not least, please don't think in terms of workspace just about technology. The future workspace management problem or future workspace problem is much more than just technology. The business element of it becomes even more important in the next years. If this all sounds interesting to you, we have a little booth up here right next door where we can give you a demo and a little bit more in-depth information. And if you don't have time to join us, then please go to our website and register for that cloud service. Thank you very much.